Okay, here we are. Then finally, again, after all the technical problems, this has been a wonderful exhibition of how things work with online lessons. Yes, that's how it goes, right? So it took us like about 10 minutes to solve it. So imagine if it were a lesson, we've lost 10 minutes probably, which is not too nice. But what can I do about? I apologize for the scarf. That's because I am being caught cold. You see, I'll be sneezing during the meetup. You'll forgive me, right? Because it's not contagious, as far as I know. Yes, is it?
No, it's not.
It's not. You think it's not? I told it to my students. It's okay. I am sneezing. It's okay, but maybe the third student to whom I told it, he started sneezing as well. So I don't know now. It may be contagious. So you're my test subjects. Let me know if you catch cold after this meetup. Okay, that's so cool to see you all there. Oh, Noah, if you're without the audio, can you write on Hangouts? Are you fine with that? Noah has been writing very nicely while we've been on Zoom, but now, just in case someone logs in Zoom, I'll be, yes, that's no problem. I see you writing. Excellent. I'll be checking my emails, seeing if anyone wants to log on Zoom. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Sorry for this, for the hassle with the. With the video. How are you doing? How it has been? We started last time, Mariana, you haven't been with us back then. We started with the idea of 10 minutes of inspiration, as I called it, which means like, how are you? What happened? What happened to you? Any new ideas and new students? Any news? Just exchanging the new things that happened to you recently about teaching. Anyone wants to share? Anything? No, nothing happened.
Well, I actually have a very, very interesting situation, and that is actually that a couple of, I would say, days ago, there was some kind of guy from Croatia whose name is Vatko, and he booked like a trial Serbian lesson. And we all know that Serbian and Croatian are almost the same language. And I was like, okay, so I saw the name and I thought, okay, maybe he was like American, or something like this, who has just origin from Serbia. And then I checked his profile and I saw he was from Zagreb, and I was like, what the hell?
What was that?
Right. And then actually we had that trial lesson and he started to speak in English, and I was like, okay, so that is not like how I thought, so he wanted English. And I was totally direct with him, and I asked him, why for the God's sake you asked me for Serbian language? Wow, do you want to learn Cyrillic or what? And he told me, did I ask you Serbian? Oh, for the God's sake, I made a mistake.
Okay.
That was really hilarious.
Yeah. Luckily you teach English as well, so no problem with that.
Right, but that was really hilarious. We both laughed a lot, and then we continued with our class.
Yes.
And now he became my regular student. So
that's great. That's a great story. Thank you. It happens. Yeah. So what else?
You're welcome.
Yeah. More stories? Something? Okay, while you're thinking, I can tell it's not something about a specific student. I noticed that number of students on my number of lessons on italki is approaching 2,000. Like I think in 2 weeks it's gonna be 2,000, and I started thinking very hard, what can I do about it? So I had all kinds of ideas. First, of course, the most first idea is, okay, student number 2000 will get a massive discount. And then I thought, how am I gonna know who is student number 2000? The number, I do not,
yes.
I have to really go into my teacher's profile, which I don't do, nor you see normally. I won't notice who is student 2000. Students won't know it probably as well. So who is it that's going to be? And discounts, again, it's kind of technically difficult. So I've been thinking more. I do want to celebrate this moment. So then I thought, okay, maybe I will send them something. Maybe I'll send them, and I thought about sending them a comic book. I even brought it to show you. That's a comic book on Hebrew, and for student number 2000 he'll receive a vintage comic book on Hebrew. And then I thought, oh, it's such a hassle that I have to go to the post, and if it's a beginner, he will understand nothing. Though it's nice, but it's kind of not ideal. Today, finally, I've got a better idea. I think it's a better idea. You tell me what you think. Inspired by our meetup, I'll have a broadcast lesson, 2,000 lessons. I'll have an open lesson, like for free, for all my students to benefit, probably. Yeah, because I think they all deserve it. And something like, for those who are total beginners, they'll just sit there and listen to some Hebrew, and I hope some more advanced students will come with whom we could have a chat, and they could get to know each other, my students, actually, maybe. So that's what I thought about doing. What do you think?
That's an awesome idea.
If you were a student, would you enjoy it? Would you come?
Yeah, totally.
I wonder.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's kind of like same idea as here. Let's all meet together, guys. I keep having the same ideas all over again. I think. So let's take it to our students, because it has been so nice, our meetup. So I thought, why not the students as well? Well, I'll tell you if it happened and how it happened. I'll have to start promoting it now. Like with every student having a lesson, I have to tell each one that here I have a lesson, and yeah. But again, choosing time would be a challenge. With the time zones and stuff. I'll try.
Yeah, with all the time zones.
It's not gonna be an italki schedule or something. Okay, I'll let you know how it happens. It will be like about around 2 weeks or so. So we will see. But that's a number. I like it. Yeah. I didn't notice when it was like lesson number 1000. I didn't notice when it happened and how it happened. Only now by chance I've seen it. Oh, it's in 2000. Yeah. Did you have your 1000? Did you celebrate?
What?
No.
Did you have your like the italki count number, like italki counter of number of lessons that you taught there? Do you know how many? And did you celebrate?
I didn't get until 2000 still.
But 1000. Did you celebrate like the round numbers? Anyone talk about celebrating?
1000. Yes, I celebrated with my family, of course, and we drank wine.
I didn't notice actually. Back then, I didn't know when it happened and how it happened. I don't know. So okay, let's start celebrating.
What about you, Mariana?
I did only 100. I'm a newbie on italki.
It's just an italki.
Never mind. Did you celebrate?
100? Yes, a little bit. I was really lucky.
I guess that I'm just gonna
100.
celebrate the 500.
Yeah, come on, do it.
I guess that I'm going to celebrate that. So like 500 and 1000, 1500. Like that's what I'm gonna do. Just decided that.
That's great. Okay. Then after we celebrate, tell us how it was, and we have to think of something. What can we do for students? Also a nice idea, like people who who get money on Kickstarter and stuff like that. There's like bonuses, like a lunch with the creator. I thought about something like that as well. But for that, students have to come to Israel, or we have to meet somewhere else. It's not practical at all.
No, it's not.
So, okay. So we'll see how it goes on. The same idea with students, and if I'm gonna have several students meeting, actually. But I'm kind of excited. Let's see how it works out. Okay, now, these are the news so far. Yes, Mariana, no idea. Noah, whom we can't see and hear, but we can read. Did you have any insights?
No, I can write.
Yeah, Noah can write. Or that would be bothersome to write if it's a long idea or something. Yeah. I know you hear us. Yeah. Okay. If there are no more insights, to share for now? We can move not at the moment. Okay, thank you for participating.
What about you, Mariana? Do you have anything interesting to share?
Good question.
No, actually, I was on a vacation in August, so my student, two of my students, they were also on vacation, so we stopped a little bit with lessons. I'm waiting for next week. They will come back and we will continue our lessons. So it was a longer break because I don't teach all full time, so I have only a couple of students. But it was interesting. I saw the topics, so I did only 100 lessons, and I have all of these difficulties you mentioned on it. So in 100, I had it all. And I can imagine that you can in 2000 you have more difficulties in teaching online. So it is really interesting. It was interesting for me because it is interesting subject because I had all of these students you mentioned.
It's okay. Probably the problems are recurrent and they same problems. By the way, about you said that your students were on vacation, and some teachers like testify that they're in summer they don't have like many students. June, July, everything was as usual, just as usual, and now at the end of August I do have less lessons. Do you experience like this lull, like the students go on vacation and don't book many lessons in summer?
I am experiencing that now, actually. I worked pretty hard in July, August, but now in just like September, since like the majority of my students are actually like they go to college, so they're like my age. So for that reason, a lot of my students are actually starting college, or they're moving out, or they're going somewhere else, and they're starting classes. And so because of that, I'm not getting a lot of students. So a lot of lessons. Like students are there, but they don't have time to book lessons. So I don't have that much time too now. But so it's fine. Yeah. But anyway, nothing interesting happened. So.
Yeah, probably for me as well. There are often people asking, like on Facebook, and then even on italki, just there are questions that sometimes all of a sudden this week has been empty, and what happens to my students? It happens, and I never observed any pattern. I would think that in January, December, January, people are celebrating. In one year it is, and another year it isn't. It is like that, and another year it's not like that. It's never constant, it's just waves, and no law about it.
Right.
Yeah, you agree? Okay. Let's keep telling.
Students will come. Students will come just in the like busiest time of your life.
That's it. Yes.
Come in the moment. When you have nothing to do, you've got no students.
Yeah. Exactly. Then when you plan to, when you have a flight, when you fly somewhere, when you move, yes, when something happens in your life, when you're not. This is a topic I would like to talk about. Yes, teaching while having a total mess in your life. Teaching when everything it just falls apart. But I don't know, when you have to catch things all around, and I mean, there are life outside of Skype, which is difficult to imagine, but we do have it. So it's exactly when students come, most demanding and serious students. That's when. Okay, students, demanding and difficult. That was the subject actually of our. It is the 7th meetup. Did you notice? 7th meetup. So yeah, great. Yes.
We should have a celebration for the 10th one.
Definitely, yes. Actually, 7th is a magical number, so also something to mark. 7th. So the topic was difficult students. Thank you, Stefano. The people are thrilled about your topic. Did you notice that?
Yeah, that's good. I saw the comments on Facebook.
Yes, thank you. So. Tell us, people share with us. Tell us, just tell us stories about the difficult students you had before we start into being very specific. Yes, anyone?
Difficult students.
Yeah. You probably have a gallery, and you know.
Right.
Can we call anyone like one student difficult, or it's always like one aspect of a student that is difficult?
That's actually good.
But in which sense? But in which sense difficult? Like somebody who is not organized, or somebody who is a little bit abusive? Like in which sense difficult?
You start. You choose, and we will catch up. I can start with something specific. Abusive is not something on our list, by the way. Abusive is interesting. Can you elaborate on that? Abusive students.
Yeah, I think that with abusive students, first of all, yes, you should try also to stay calm down and cool as longer as you can, and to explain. And if that doesn't work, definitely you should cancel this, or somehow stop with that, and report to the italki customer support, because nobody deserves, to be treated like that.
What do you mean by abusive? Like,
abusive in any sense, who harasses you mentally in all kind of ways, no matter if it is calling or constantly messaging or something like this, or somebody who is without clothes or something like this. So this is also not good. So I think all kind of things like that should be also reported. And if somebody also insults you, you should also report this.
But it's never that
Yes, no, I said that without clothes.
That's like an extreme case, I guess.
Yeah, it should be. It's just that thing never happened to me, but I did have a student who was cursing. I mean, that's how he speaks, and he says the F word and whatnot. That's how. Yeah, he just says it. Maybe he was waiting for my reaction. Maybe that's how he speaks. Maybe he is overconfident about himself. I don't know, but I kind of, okay, all right. If that's how you speak, that's how you speak. You know.
Yeah.
Well.
I mean, when we talk about difficult students, I guess that like what I meant is just to show and to talk about students that they're just like, I guess we can put students in two different categories. So like students that are just so easy to talk to, so easy to teach to, like those students that you just open the webcam for the first time, and it's just love at first sight, that you just love talking to them, and you can't wait to have lessons with them because they're so nice and they're so interested in what they're doing. And then just students who you have to put a lot of effort in. You have to explain things over and over because maybe they're not that interested, or because they are a bit lazy, or just because they're not, not everybody is, very, I don't want to say that, but there are students that are very bright and they understand things like so fast that you just explain them, just explain things to them and they're just like, oh yeah, I got it. And some students who just need, more time. And so that might be something you have to put more effort in. So this is what I guess we're talking about. And I've had a few, I've had cases of, students that I, just, again, love at first sight. And then some students who I have to put a lot of effort in. So, and we already talked about that, but for example, I've got this, So I've got this.
Goodbye to Noah, who is leaving.
So I've got this student, and maybe we talked about that last time, but he's just a bit slow in understanding, and that is, I would say that it's kind of hard to handle, but because you have to add that slowness, I would say, to the fact that he doesn't want to actually study. So when you are a beginner, you do need to study the grammar and basic words and verbs, because if you don't do that, you're never going to be able to speak. Once you're a little bit advanced, you can, you can do that. You can study less, but at the beginning, it's very good to build the foundations,
Absolutely.
It's very important to do that. I'm very passionate about grammar, and I try to pass that on to my students, because if you've got a very good foundation of grammar, you're going to be you're not going to have problems in the future. So the fact of grammar, that it's very important to build foundation when you're learning a language, and it's hard to communicate that to students that might be lazy, or that just, some students just don't want to study. And that's very hard at the beginning, because if you don't study the basics, it's going to be very hard for you in the future. And sometimes students blame you for that. And not directly, but indirectly, because they're kind of frustrated. And that might be one of the, I guess, most common case of difficult student, I guess.
Do you explain them? I do some like brainwashing for this, and I usually, maybe sometimes I'm afraid when it happens, I think I give them too much theory. I feel that I need to explain to a student what happens and how we learn actually, and I do dedicate, especially if some students understand them by default, they just know how it works. Some students don't, and I talk to them. I explain that yes, in order to know something, I have to study something, but usually the students who do not want to study, they don't keep coming. They get discouraged fast and they just leave.
Yeah. But that's not the case, because I've got this student. He has been my student for over a year. So he's very motivated, but maybe it's just slow, and it's okay. I mean, we've got time, so it's fine. He doesn't have pressure on him to learn Italian. He wants to do that because he just wants to. So I mean, it's fine. But sometimes it's just hard to communicate that, because some students are just very, very stubborn, and that's all.
Yes. Yeah, I keep saying that learning a language is the number of hours that you invest into learning this language, and I keep interrogating, what have you been doing between our lessons? Yes, because one lesson a week, it's enough, I give you a push, but if you do nothing in between the lessons, so you're not gonna make progress. I do say it out loud, so that if you do nothing and I babysit and we review together, then don't expect progress. Then it will take years and years.
Right.
I say it.
Right. You gotta be harsh sometimes.
Sometimes, yes. I think I have set 2 students last week, because they passed really. They really were very motivated. They are beyond this beginner stage, and they entered this the awful intermediate, the plateau. And yes, and they being used to fast progress in the beginning stage, they kind of expect the same in the intermediate, and they take one lesson a week, and they kind of are more relaxed. Okay, I have the basics, everything is great. So a student comes to me after 3 weeks, and he forgot the basic words, he can't understand. I go, wait a second, have you been practicing during these 3 weeks? Because I thought you've been taking lessons with other teachers or doing something. No, I did nothing actually. On the one hand, it's good. He didn't kind of run away from me. He's my student. He didn't cheat on me with other teachers. But on the other hand, for 3 weeks, no progress in his, even on the opposite. And say, no, you know what? If you do nothing, again, same song. If you do nothing between the lessons, you are not gonna see the progress. And so I was gonna do homeworks. Tell me, what are you gonna do between the lessons? And students, they do feel uncomfortable and pressured. So I don't know if I'm doing a good thing or a bad thing. What do you think? Should we put pressure? Yeah. Oh, we see you.
Well, that's, I think, one of the issues, is that they don't know what to do between lessons, and then they get frustrated because, depending on the amount of homework that the teacher gives, they either feel overwhelmed or they feel like they don't know what they should be doing, and yeah, like that's what I found, because I teach pronunciation, and like that's one of the issues is that I'm always telling people, well, you have to actually talk to somebody, you have to actually, or even not talk to somebody, but you have to practice the exercises, and there's a sense of overwhelm. That's what I feel like, because real life intrudes, and if language learning isn't in their primary focus, like who was it? Stefano? Yeah, when he was saying it's not if there's no pressure, they don't have a goal that's driving them specifically, like for a job or for a school or something. They don't really care, so they're not going to learn.
Yeah. That's what I
But
thought.
what happens sometimes is that even though like you're not, like you're not pressured because you're not doing that for a job or for school, sometimes like some students that are taking lessons for a job or for school, sometimes they're not interested either,
Sure.
So it's also like most of the students that are learning just for pleasure are actually those students who really want to learn the language. But sometimes that doesn't happen anyway, because as you said, as I said, and you said again, like, they don't feel pressured, so they feel relaxed. They say, hey, I've got a lot of time, like I don't have to speak the language tomorrow, so whatever.
Well, I think right now maybe they need more like specific tasks, because like what have you been doing between the lessons?
That was exactly what I wanted to tell you. What I usually do also with my students, I practice with them a lot that topic that I planned to them. And then after that I tell them, okay, now you write your version. Okay, so for example, I remember yesterday I did with one American student like how to write formal letters and informal letters, and then I gave him like example of one informal letter. I improvised something, okay, I wrote something, and then I told him, okay, now switch that into the formal letter. And then I told him, okay, now as a homework, you will have to write your own formal letter, your own informal letter, and then to convert them, the informal into the formal and the opposite.
That's very specific. But I'm teaching like pronunciation, as you said, it's been teaching pronunciation. Then what kind of specific tasks can you give?
Also with the pronunciation, I don't think it is that kind of difficult, because, for example, we can do some kind of reading also some articles together, and then so he or she can practice, he or she can record himself by reading all of this, and then send it to me.
Or use
that's what I use SoundCloud for.
Are you using SoundCloud or something? Because SoundCloud you can add notes on pronunciation at the exact point.
Yeah, SoundCloud to me is the best thing to help with pronunciation. So I have, because that's another thing too, is like when I assign homework to students, like I give them the homework, and if they don't do it, then I'm like, well, it's on you. I'm invested as much as you're invested. And so, but that's also good feedback, because if they do attempt the homework and they can't finish it because they feel overwhelmed, that's another point of like difficult students, because they don't necessarily have the vocabulary. They're not the teacher. They don't know what it feels like to be like, if you say I should be able to do this and I can't, then what's wrong with me? So to me, it's a good place to like reevaluate on the next lesson. Okay, so maybe you shouldn't have been assigned that one. Maybe you should be assigned like, a different lower or more less intensive assignment.
Yes. But that's a definite assignment. Again, if you want them at a certain point, we want our students to practice. And for practicing, they need to speak. And then they said, okay, if you live in a bigger town, look for meetups. Find the native speakers. Talk to native speakers. Look for language exchange opportunities. Which is, also I have this thought at the back of my mind, like, you are the teacher, why are you sending people to go practice with someone else? But I think like natural exercising the language, it's important and not less important. It's very important I'm talking about intermediate now, intermediate and advanced, to hear different voices, to hear different pronunciations, different vocabularies, because me is me. It's constantly me, and I'm speaking slower because I am used to speaking slower than many native speakers do. Because
That's a good point.
I listen. I listen. I know what they understand. I will pause and ask twice. Did you understand that word? Because I'm a teacher. Normal people don't do that. So I push them. How can I push them to something I cannot control? It's uncontrollable out there.
No, but that's actually a good point, because sometimes, since we're teachers, we're just used to speak in a certain way to certain students.
Yes.
Because we know, like, for example, I've got so I live in a house and I've got a roommate, and he joined italki. So he was just looking for language partners, and he's found this language partner from the US, and he was teaching him Italian. It was just, an informal thing, of course, but the main thing was him speaking in English to this guy and just teaching Italian. And so when I was just, in the living room, and I was listening, I was hearing what he was saying to him, and at some point I was like he was saying things, and I was like, oh, he's never gonna understand that, because that's not what Americans say. Oh, he's never going to understand this idiom because that's so hard. Oh, he's speaking too fast, because that's just something I do with my mind. I just automatically do. And sometimes, so I've got the student, I talk that way to him, and it just feels so natural to use certain words and speak at a certain pace, those kind of things. And so that's why I always encourage my students, hey, you should talk to somebody, to a native speaker, because they're going to give you a lot anyway. And it's good to combine those things.
Exactly. Yeah. They're gonna overwhelm you, which is, as a teacher, I can't do it. I kind of all my being resists. But native speakers can do it, and they should face it. Normally students should face being overwhelmed with normal pace, normal, not non-official speech, and and with idioms and stuff like that. Yes, but then again, how do you make them do it? How?
Yeah, well, that's another thing. Like I said, you cannot make somebody do something they don't want. And talking to somebody else is often one of the biggest fears that people have because of that. All of our social fears about being judged and being wrong and all that. So to me, I really do. I'm like, all right, you don't have to talk to somebody to practice, but you have to listen to this podcast. I use real world media sources for my students who don't have the time because of their life. And that's another issue too, is I'm understanding is it's my life because this is my job. But for other people, they have jobs and families and all that stuff, and so fitting language in, go into a meetup is almost impossible for maybe somebody. So I'm like, okay, I'll give you this other resource that you can practice in this particular way. This is how you have to use the resource in order to get the results. And holding their hand, not just saying go find a podcast, but actually okay, so listen to it and then do this and then do this and then so giving them an actual real long assignment with very particular steps.
But you have to prepare that. That means lots of preparation on your side. You have to listen to those podcasts and to make assignments and to check assignments. So well done. Great. And also,
that's my job. That's what I charge them for.
Good. I also have another. It's not only me. Also, my best students do that. Again, if we don't have opportunity to talk to actual people going to the meetup, for listening, listen to podcasts, and for speaking, speak to yourself. Yes, that's something that worked for many. Not everyone can do that. Is capable of doing that. It's a kind of skill which we have to teach ourselves. It doesn't come easily, but it helps tremendously, I think. Yeah. Do you have students who have you ever seen? Twice I've seen that a student reported that there was a certain leap in abilities, and then asked, what have you been doing recently? I started talking to myself, was the answer. I've seen them twice. So I do try to encourage them to do that. Well, okay, back to difficult students. What do you do if a student, now we tell them do this and do that, and what if a student comes and says no, it's not what you need to do, we need to do such and such, and you absolutely disagree with that? What
You
are
need to do, sorry?
if a student says, well, I want to do this and this, and you know that it's not, you feel like it's not going to work.
Oh, okay.
Has it happened to you
Yeah.
before?
I wrote a blog post about one of the students who wrote me a review that basically was like, she didn't like, for me, he was talking about me. It's like, she has a good method, but I don't want to learn her way, so I want to give her 5 stars because she seems like a good teacher, but I can't use her, so I want to give her 1 star, so I'm gonna give her 3 stars. Like, that was his review. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, the whole time we were in the lesson, I was like, this is my method, and this is how I teach. And he was like, well, this is my method, and this is how I learn. And I'm like, well, we're not compatible then. And that was fine to me.
Yeah, usually such students leave and just they come for one lesson, they see that it's not working, and then they leave usually. But some students. Yes? Hello?
Well, what happened also to me is that once or twice, twice, I had some kind of teenagers who expected from me to teach them how to speak fluently in Serbian after only 2 or 3 classes.
Oh, wow.
It is impossible, and that is why they wrote to me that like they feel I didn't want to complete their goals and something like this, and I was like, okay, thank you very much for your revision, but I don't think it's real. You know, maybe you should find some spouse or something like this to put it on yourself. Something like this, I told them. So
Yeah, but sometimes maybe just because some students, maybe they're very, like, they know how to learn, but that doesn't apply to like every language or just every situation, you know? We've got experience and our students usually don't. It's just because we've got experience not just because we're teachers, but because we've seen so many situations and so many students that we've got that, a general idea, and we just apply our method to different students, maybe in different ways. We've seen that work. And so we want to apply that to also students that maybe want to learn in another way. If we're not compatible, as you said, okay, it's fine. You just go and you're gonna find somebody that is going to suit you. But sometimes, maybe most of the time, we know what's best for the student, and the student doesn't.
Yes, yes. And even explaining that to the student sometimes is worth it. I don't usually, but for example, I had a student, a very nice guy into advanced stage, beginner advanced. And we were already talking and speaking, but he is a business guy. He's a businessman, and businessmen, what I've seen so far, they tend to be more, decisive about what they do and how they want to do it. So first he was, when we start to talk about difficult topics, he would usually stop and say, okay, I don't have the words for that. Let's change subject. He starts explaining to me that, some topics that you would start talking about are beyond my level, and that's one thing that he tried to teach me. And the other thing he tried to teach me, that while speaking, new words come up, and usually I write down those new words. I make a list, and I expect the students to kind of to review the list, at least, or the best is to write example sentences with the words. And he never does that. And at one lesson he was kind of, it's okay. He was kind of, the student was very frustrated. He said, when I tried to check what he remembers from the vocabulary from the previous lessons, he remembered nothing. And all of a sudden he realized that without reviewing the words, he remembers nothing. So, and then he was saying like, okay, but if you use more of the words we've just mentioned in the lesson, you do some preparation on your side as well. I can do whatever, anything, but you have to learn the words. You just have to learn the words. It's just not going to work if you don't. Yeah. I can try to incorporate more words that we mentioned in the conversation. I'm gonna, talk with the same words again and again and again, and you're not gonna have new vocabulary. I didn't say it all, but that's what I thought. And sometimes if you don't say it all, but they just see by, okay, I'll do what you say, and then he sees it just doesn't work. Yeah. Sure. But he comes with certain. Well, he hasn't been looking for 2 or 3 weeks actually. It's kind of a student who sometimes he comes consistently once a week, twice a week, and then he disappears, and then comes again. Probably this guy, he will speak the language, but his own, he will. I think these students, they have to figure out their own way. Yeah, and eventually.
And that's one of the point that we wanted to discuss, like not constant students, the students that just show up once in weeks, and that's very hard because they show up like, I don't know, once in 2, 3, 4 weeks, and they just expect us to do like the magic.
Yeah.
And we can. It's just, language is about learning a language is about being constant. Like you have to be like you have to at least read or speak the language every single day. Like that's what you have to do. I mean, when I was learning a language, when I was learning English, for example, I remember that I had like next to my bed just a book with all the new words that I was learning, and every single time before going to bed I was like opening that notebook and just reading all and I was going over all the words over and over again, and just watching videos. English is an easy language to learn, kind of, just because everything is in English. There are so many things online that you can find, and so many videos, and it's just very easy to be close to the English language every day. Some languages, it's not the same thing. But that's what you have to do. And if you show up for lessons once in 4 weeks, I'm not a superhero.
Yes. Do you explain that? Do you tell them?
Yes, of course. I mean, actually, I've never had these kind of like very, like not custom students. I mean, I actually have one that is not very constant, but she's very advanced. So you don't really feel that, It's just about, hey, I need this right now. I'm just gonna book a lesson with you, right? So it's not that bad because she's very advanced. But I was just imagining if that was the same. If that was the case with a beginner student, that would have it would be impossible.
But people are different. Students are different. For some, you normally I would say and explain, but some student, I think I told you about the student. Oh, hello, hi there. About the student, she's not young, and she's kind of visiting my lessons as a kind of hobby time, and it's a way to relax, to study some Hebrew, and she comes once in a while, and we're not gonna see progress. And that's not a person I can push, and I can explain that if you want to speak the language, because probably she doesn't want really to be fluent. She just wants to be in touch with the language. So we have to keep in mind the goals of the student. We cannot we need kind of to categorize them, and some students do need to be fluent, some students maybe they just don't. Probably. What else do we have on our list? Not.
Sorry.
Yes. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, it's fine. No, I was just interested in like knowing what you think about students that cancel with a short notice, because that happened to me like several times, and sometimes I just know how to handle it, sometimes I don't. It's very hard to handle that, because it's, sometimes I don't want to charge students that have stuck with me for so long, and it's how, I mean, what do you think about that?
Do you sell a lot of packages?
Mostly.
Yeah, so that's what I do. Is like I basically say once a package, you can cancel or like short notice, and it'll be fine. But after that once, then it's I've dedicated the time, so you're paying for my time.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's and some people are strict, some people are less strict. But to me, it's if you don't give me like 48 hours notice, then I can't book another student. So
48.
I need
48, not 24. 48. You are strict.
Wow.
I'm not that strict. I don't have a rule. I love that italki kind of covers us and then says like for this 24 hours notice. But I do make exceptions, lots of exceptions. Like if it depends on my day, if it's sometimes if it's like 12-hour notice, like in the evening they tell me it's evening, and for the next day I know that there is no lesson, and then I can do something with my time. I say okay, it's fine. Or if it's, but it's not good, don't learn from me. I think 24 hours notice, it's a good thing, and we should stick to that. And just not showing up or letting you know 5 minutes before the lesson, it's not a way to go, and students should be, they shouldn't be encouraged. Shouldn't be encouraged to do that. But sometimes, again, if it's a student, I know that the student always comes on time, and once in a year it happens that something happened, or he forgot he had a family celebration or something, and I'm sorry, I'll pay for the lesson. Say okay, don't, it's fine. And if really something happens and an emergency, then I say that's okay, it's fine. Some students, the nice students who understand what teaching is like, they insist on paying, and I'm very grateful, and I'll tell them like 1,000 times how grateful I am, yes, for that. But some students who are really like impudent, and they don't show up, and they kind of, and they ask, can I forgot, like in the next day they write a message, I forgot about the lesson, can I reschedule? No, you can't.
Yeah, but sometimes that's, I mean, I agree with you about the like they have to pay anyway, but at the same time, for example, I've had a student and he booked a package with me and he paid for 4 lessons and he didn't show up, but he actually, he told me 5 minutes before, I can't do the lesson with you, but I'm going to pay anyway. What can I say? I mean, okay, that's all right, but he paid 4 lessons this way. And it's like, wait, I mean, 4 hours and he didn't do anything. I didn't do anything, okay, that's fine. But it's just, frustrating because you're preparing anyway. You're getting paid, right? But I want to actually teach, 1 time is okay, twice, all right. But 4, well.
See, I wouldn't actually take a package from them actually after that. To me, I would be like, if you're going to, because you're right. Like, I want to teach. I'm teaching because I like teaching. So if they're that negligent or they're that tardy, then I'm just going to say maybe you don't really want to do this and come back to when you have the time and dedication to actually learn.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I with packages, tell me what happens to you with packages. I have a very bad experience with packages. I don't sell packages anymore. Maybe for one of my courses. Because I don't know, students who book packages, most of them, they are not exactly kind of responsible, and they try to book in advance, and they like 2 months ahead, and then they cannot know what happens with them 2 months ahead, and then they cancel, and then they pick another time. I really had bad experience. Is that only me?
Well, I mean, I actually tell that to my students. I say, hey, yes, you can buy the package. I mean, I offer like an 8% discount on the package, so it's not that much. But it's good to have lessons that you can, they're saving some money anyway. And I say, hey, you can book lessons in advance, but just for like 1 month, because I'm a student, so I don't teach full time. I don't know what I'm gonna do in 2 months. So I just tell them, hey, you can book lessons in 1 month for 1 month because I know what I'm gonna do. But stop there, and you can book lessons later, so we can, just know how it's going to work out. I just tell them to that's all.
Well, in my case, yes, I let them also book even in advance that much, because almost always I'm well organized and I know what I'm going to do. And if something happens, then I ask them if it is possible to reschedule. For example, it was for Bratislava, and I told them, okay, I'm going to go to other country because I need a vacation, and then we will continue once I get back. And also if we talk about vacations, one student of mine booked a couple of lessons like this when he was on vacation, and that worked well for a lesson or two. But then it didn't work well because his family wanted to go to some beach that was closer to, that was a little bit far from the hotel, not close. And we needed to reschedule that lesson, and then we made it once he came back home.
Yeah, I actually think that my package students are way more dedicated to teach learning than my individual students are. Because
Definitely.
yeah, like I've never had a single package without, like, most of my packages happen just fine. Like they usually book 1 to 2 weeks in advance. I had one student who really wanted to make sure that he got the 8:30 a.m. slot on Saturday. Well, for me it was 8:30, but and so like he booked that every single time he had a package. He booked that time every single week for like the next month. But he would always like let me know, oh, sorry, that week, I'm going to have to cancel or something like that. And he would let me know a couple weeks in advance. But it is, to me, it's like part of my job as a teacher is to train them about my expectations. So it's not just about the language, but like, this is how I teach. This is my policy around cancellations and all that, and booking ahead. And if that works for you, great. But there's lots of other teachers, if it doesn't, maybe I'm more harsh than some of you people here, but like, if I give them the expectations, then it takes the weight off of them to have to like worry about what if they can ask me for this particular thing, because I'm like, yeah, I have a policy in place for that, and that's cool. Like that's how I do things, and then it's easy for them. But yeah, for me, packages are way better than individual lessons.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I mean, I've just had this, this case of this student who paid for 4 lessons in the package and he never showed up. But packages, I guess, also for me, like, they're way better because, the most dedicated students actually buy packages, like not just students that want to have few lessons with you. So it's the same for me.
Interesting. So interesting.
And also what happened, for example, to me is that once I was a student, I can't remember what did I learn at that time, and I really forgot to come to this lesson because I was really super busy at that moment, and I saw the message from italki too late about my lesson, and I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot. And then in the evening, I wrote a message actually to that teacher, and I asked him, okay, sorry, could we do this tomorrow? And we did it tomorrow. So Alisa, you should actually take some time, at least give that student a day or two to see if he or she is going to tell you. Maybe you don't need even to reschedule this. You can just ask them if you could make it another day, and then once you finish this, you can confirm that lesson.
Unless it's a time that it's better to reschedule, and then one will take this time because it's an open time slot of the next day. So rescheduling works better. And also I'll get a notification, so I prefer scheduling. Yes, we did it like by just agreement, moving time to another time. But I mean, having lesson actually in italki schedule is much safer. Yes, because we had the reminders. By the way, this, about students who want to book the same time every week. That's a pity that italki has no option to have one time booked for. Yes. For those contacts.
I'm really hoping that one day italki will implement calendar syncing with my Google Calendar. So, because I have my personal things too, and every single other platform out there offers some kind of calendar syncing, and so I feel like it's very, very backwards for italki to not be more flexible around our schedule. I have to go in if I have like this appointment, like this is during one of my class times technically, so I have to go in to italki and take out the 8:30 slot and then reattach the 9:30 to whatever slot if I want to leave those open. And I'm just like, it's not. I don't. As somebody who used to work in tech, that's not a very difficult thing to do, is to implement calendar syncing. So that's just one of those features that I'm like, one day, hopefully, soon.
Did you write to them?
Totally.
Did you write to them? We have to tell them sometimes.
I haven't yet, no.
Actually, I asked so many things. I'm not sure that they are very relaxed currently because I think they're selling well and everything is functioning. So they're not really interested in any changes. If it's working, everything's working fine. Yes, but they would really love this feature and like stable. Some students to book this time, this day for like forever. Many students. I have a student who's for 2 years. He's taking same day, same time. And again, he forgot this week, he forgot to book for the upcoming month, and someone else is taking his time, and I have to write messages. I'm sorry, this time is taken by another student. He's been doing it for 2 years. Could you please choose another day? And that's Sunday. Sunday is very, many students want Sunday. So I feel bad for her because she took that time before he did. It's like free market, first to catch, first to get. I feel also.
But no, I'm much more loyal to my current students than I want like to recruit new students necessarily, because if it's a good relationship, I want to maintain that relationship.
Yeah, but one is like for 2 years and the other is kind of like for maybe 2 months or 3 months. But again, both are important to me. But yes, I told her, please could we reschedule for the benefit of the student who's studying with me for 2 years. But it's not nice and it takes my time. The correspondence takes my time, and it's stupid, kind of. Yeah. What else? Yes. Not connected to my last sentence, but something I really wanted to mention about difficult students. For me, the most difficult student is a silent student. Did you have experience with silent students? Like.
I think I already talked about this during the previous conferences. So I will repeat. So what I usually do is I don't let them to give me an answer like just yes or no. So it is always like, what do you think about that? What would you do in this and this situation? How would you change this? And something like this. So something that can force them to express them a little bit more. And also, I always try to ask them about their preferences, like what do they like, what do they hate, and why, something like this.
And if they say nothing.
And also what helps is if somebody like me speaks many languages, so I can switch to their native language, and then actually I ask them like about their let's say preferences or something like this, and then I explain to them in their native language like why do I expect from them to be like a little bit more communicative, and what are my expectations, my method, and something like this, and then we go back to the target language.
And then they start being silent.
That also
again.
works.
That's what. I had an extreme case of such a student. How are you? Nothing special. What do you like? Nothing. And at a certain point, I found I managed to squeeze some information that he likes football, and I know nothing about football.
Never mind. Educate yourself. You should be prepared to speak about almost everything. If you know nothing about that, don't say that. Tell them. Okay, can you tell me something, for example, about your team? Why do you like that sport or something like this? Plus, there is Google. You can always inform yourself.
And I actually, if students are not talking, if they're shy or they feel nervous or anything, that I basically disregard whatever goal they told me to take my lessons were, and I was like, until you feel comfortable talking about or answering these questions, your goal is to just talk, you know. So I again, as the teacher, I'm like, you're hiring me to help you get comfortable learning this language or speaking this language. So I'm gonna, if you don't have a very firm idea of how to get there, I'm gonna tell you how you're gonna get there. I did have one student in particular who I met. I met with him for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, and he was like that. So what do you enjoy? What hobbies do you like? Well, motocross, you know. And I was like, okay, I don't know anything about motocross, so you get to tell me a lot about it. And he's like, well, I don't know. Like, what? And so it was just one of those things where I was like, all right, I'm gonna ask you a lot of leading questions. And until you talk to me for 30 seconds, I'm not gonna say anything.
Did you do that?
Yeah, but I think you had to be a little bit more specific. You could ask him like, why do you like it, or what is your favorite race, or something like this.
Yeah, those were the leading questions. So I was like, okay, so you like motocross? All right. What's your favorite race you've ever seen? Go.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
For example, sometimes I've got this student. I mean, he was not actually that shy, but one of the thing he enjoyed the most about it, he really wanted to talk about that. We were just doing conversation lessons. It was scuba diving, and I don't know anything about that. So I just typed on Google ESL questions scuba diving, because ESL, like, you know, English for learners, that thing, like they have questions for everything. I mean, even though they're in English, you can just translate them in your native language. I constantly use that website, and I found a lot of questions, and even though I didn't know the answer to those questions, I just asked them, and they worked out.
Yeah.
Excellent idea. I just wrote it down. ESL topics. Yeah. I used it once and I forgot it. I used it, and it's an excellent idea. Right. For speaking.
Yes, they have so many topics. Like they've got everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent.
But yeah, actually, I think giving them a time limit when students are really nervous or shy about talking, and tell them, all I want is 30 seconds. You have to talk straight. I'm gonna time it. 30 seconds. Go. And it surprises them how long 30 seconds even actually is when you're talking. So once they get past 30 seconds, then you can bump it up to a minute. It is about that progression for me. It's like taking away that sense of overwhelm, because like I said, as a teacher, I want to. I know that I know way more about learning the language than they do, and so I'm going to give them as many tools as possible to make them comfortable or help them be comfortable speaking it.
Do you prepare them for that? Because some students, I can imagine a situation that is, okay, now that's the topic, come on, shoot, talk for 30 minutes. And I can imagine a student who would reply, I had a student who said
30 seconds.
Seconds, yes, I did. Just. And then I can imagine a student say, oh, I'm not prepared, we can do it next lesson, I will prepare, and please give me word list, I'll study, and next lesson I'll tell you something about it. And probably he will have it written down.
If they hem and haw like that, I was like, oh, well, that was 30 seconds. So now, you know, like I don't let them get over it in their head about it. Like, yeah.
Yes. So that's the idea. How do you explain it to them? Because I can imagine a student, again, being very uncomfortable about speaking without preparation, which is as a teacher, I believe in it. I don't believe in learning lists in advance and being prepared. We are not prepared in real life. We just have to speak. We never know what native speakers will talk to us about. We have to be able to speak unprepared, I think. Yes? Do you agree with me?
And I was going to say, if they're nervous about that, if they feel like they, you know, can't, if they don't have the vocabulary for that, and I was like, that's fine, just move on. Like, I don't know, but this or something. So it is like, I very much like, that's how I teach. And when I talk to them in their initial lessons, and this particular student who I was working with for a while, he knew that was my style. Like when we had the trial lesson, I explained to him how I was going to structure the lessons, and then he still bought the package. And so once you buy the package, I'm like, all right, that is your agreement that you're going to follow the way that we talked about in the trial lesson. And so I feel like when I'm very clear in the trial about how I teach and my method and making them aware, like in the first lesson, I don't require them to talk a lot. I like to get to know them, and I let them, if they're talkers, they can take the whole trial. But if they're not talkers, I use that opportunity to help them understand how I teach. So,
what do you say usually? What is the method, if we have, I don't know, the time, and if you feel like telling about the method?
Yeah, as pronunciation teacher specifically, what I tell them is that you're not going to progress without exercises, and if you don't do the homework, that's on you. But I am going to basically treat you like an adult, because you're an adult, and if you don't want to do the assignments, then why are we meeting? So I ask them, I interrogate them and their goals, and when they become clear on why they want to take the lessons, I think they're a lot more invested.
Yes, I love that approach. That takes us to another issue on the list, or it wasn't on the list. Difficult.
Well, for example, I'm a little bit different regarding to this, because, for example, I told them, okay, maybe you didn't finish this for this class, but now we will go further. And then after that class, I tell them you will do this, this, and this, plus from the previous lesson. And usually it works. Or also with the students who are good mostly, but for some reason they didn't finish the homework. I tell them, okay, do this now during this lesson. So tell me, what would you say on these answers, for example? And he or she told me. And then I said, okay, you deserved an A. I will forgive you because you didn't finish the homework. And also that works. After that, they do this constantly because they feel like motivated.
Yes. I mean, unless you're working with a child, usually, it's just about that sense of responsibility that a student should have. And so sometimes I've got students that, we were going over homework, and he was like, oh, I didn't do this one because it's just very easy and I know how to do it. I said, all right. I mean, there's no problem. If you know how to do it, that's fine. I'm writing something on Skype that's related to that exercise. Just do this one. I want to make sure that you understood this correctly. And then he gets that wrong. Hey, you said that was easy, but apparently it's not. Do you want to do that again? Like, do you want us to go over that again? Sure. But that's what you have to do. And sometimes, it's about treating students like adults, but sometimes you gotta just babysit them because that's what they need. And
which takes us to
well,
the point.
usually I work with teenagers and with adults.
Yes.
So even with adults, I do the same. I give them marks, and usually it is B or A. And I tell if I see that they are for C or less, I tell them, okay, I will not give you any marks. So let's do this again. So this is like British style, I would say. Like I said, that was okay, but let's do this again and let's cover a little some stuffs more. And actually that worked. And after that, they usually would get B or A, and then I would rate them.
Which takes us to teaching teenagers. Talking about difficult students, I think teenagers that's a challenging type of students, aren't they? And for two reasons. On the one hand, they can be unmotivated if someone else is like making them take the lessons. Luckily, I had only once I had a student like that. And also, sometimes we get motivated teenagers, but it's not the end of the way. Like, it can be very surprising. I had a teenager once. This guy was so motivated, so bright. It was so interested. I was so impressed. Yes, and this guy, he's very good. He has a very good ear for pronunciation, and he was copying sentences. He was able to produce full sentences. But when I kind of try to test his abilities and to break sentences apart and to make him say something else, then I found out that he knows nothing. He kind of remembered phrases by heart, and it was a pleasure to teach because he's such a, he was like 15, 16, but while I'm with him on camera, such a great guy, really. I think, wow, he's going to be one of the greatest polyglots. But then he is a child. And it was a strange thing teaching. Then he was talking to his mom about taking lessons, and he was asking rather stupid questions about stupid questions about I don't know how about how many lessons, how much the lessons cost, and he asked his to talk to his mom, and I'd been talking to his mom for an hour and a half. It was supposed to be I granted him like maybe a short Skype for free just to explain to his mom what we're talking about, because I thought it's a very, very talented guy, and I really wanted to help him, and a homeschooler. So I really wanted to help him, and discussing, like agreeing upon a certain time was such a problem, and I was waiting for them at one time and they were not there, and finally I got on Skype with his mom for free, okay? And I was talking and explaining things for her for an hour and a half, and he was writing very long in Skype, very long questions, like theoretical question. How long do you think it takes to learn a language? Stuff like that, but even more expensive, and I had to give long answers because, again, I felt this guy is great and so smart. And then he told me, he said, yes, Luca Lamparello said the same when I asked him. So, he was also messaging Luca Lamparello and asking him the questions. And Luca was answering. And then he mentioned that, but Luca is kind of greedy or something like that, he said, because he, at a certain point, told me that he's not going to answer me for free. I understood this young adult was messaging Luca, was kind of pesting Luca Lamparello the way he did me, and he got some replies for free. But Luca Lamparello is a famous polyglot, kind of. So, and then he took maybe 5-7 lessons, and then he disappeared. So that's the end of the story.
Yeah, that's going to be actually like the saddest part. Sometimes is like they're progressing really well, or we met for like a month or two, and then they're gone forever.
And like even worse if they switch to another teacher.
Well, they might have. I mean, I don't know, because they're not contacting me anymore.
Right. I mean, I had that. Like, I had a student for over a year, and then I figured out that he was taking lessons from another teacher. That was very, it was very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But it happens. It's just a business, and that happens.
I
just had something to ask, like your opinion about that. So in the points we had also 2 needy students. Maybe that's not actually like necessarily a difficult student, but sometimes students are just very needy. Maybe they're just not, I would not say that they're difficult or like problematic students, but they're just the most challenging one.
Time consuming.
Like what? Yeah, like what do you expect? Because I have an idea myself. But
yes, for example, like, I don't know, I had this student from Chile. She's very good at it. She's very advanced. She's very good. But sometimes she just asks questions that are very specific. But I'm not talking about the specific thing you have to know because like you're a professional teacher and you go in a book and you read them. But like those kind of questions you have to go to like the National Dictionary and just look them into and know like the very specific difference between this word that you knew and you thought they were like synonyms, but instead they got the different little shade of difference. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Like that's very kind of students. Maybe they're challenging, and I like them. I mean, I'm not saying they're difficult students, but how do you handle that?
I give them the time.
I mean,
I answer.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I just answer. I give them the time they need.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was going to say is that I have some of my students who become really like close to me. Like they contacted me, like they'll send me pictures. Like one of my students who I met with over a year, he sent me a picture of him and hanging out with his friends at like the club. Like, oh, we're practicing English tonight. Like thought you'd let him know. And I'm like, oh, that's great, thanks. But in terms of like those like really like nitpicky, like super technical questions and stuff, yeah, it very much is. It's like, oh, okay, you're like, I'm a language nerd, so I'm like, I've never heard that or thought of that question before. So I don't want to waste time researching right now, but like we can talk about it and then I can research it like after the lesson or as my prep for the next lesson, and then I can give you a better answer. So I'm like not on the spot and I can like figure out all the nuance and details. Like that's generally what I do if they come to me with those kinds of questions. I'm not a grammar teacher, and I avoid teaching it at all possible. So, but I know that part of my, as they still are going to come to me with those questions. So when they ask me certain kinds of English questions that I don't have a specialty in, I'll do some research when I'm doing my prep for their class.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting that sometimes if the question is high level, it's one thing, but sometimes we have like beginner intermediate students who ask questions which are like way they're kind of running ahead, which are way beyond their understanding. Some students who like to listen to materials which are beyond their level, which is good, I would encourage it, but then they come with questions, and these are, if they're beginners, these are the questions which I definitely will be explaining. They need to wait for several lessons, 5, 6, 10. So once I used to plainly refuse answering and say, I will explain it when you are ready to understand. Recently, I started telling them this. Well, I will definitely explain it better and we will be practicing it in such and such number of lessons. Right now, I will give you an answer because I started feeling very bad about not giving an answer. I will give you an answer, but please leave it as it is. I'll give you a quick reply. You can forget it after my reply. We're not going to practice it now. But I started...
That happens all the time. But it usually happens with those students that actually, like for example, I've got students that they want to study the grammar by themselves and just practice conversations with me. But what's happening if they have a book and maybe they're not following the book actually, and so sometimes they just come to you and they say, oh, I don't know prepositions. And since I've got like I created a course over like presentations, so I've got presentations, they're just like titled lesson 1, 2, 3, and say, oh, prepositions, okay, we're gonna go over prepositions, so you can ask me questions on that, and that is lesson 5. And then, oh, but I got also another question that is on my book right here, and I'm studying that right now, that is on these kind of pronouns. Oh, sure. What kind of pronouns? Oh, chiene. And I'm like, hey, that's like lesson 27 on my course. I could like explain you what that is, but you're not going to understand because you need things in between. You need to learn more things, and then you're going to be able to understand that. So sometimes you're right, Elisa. You just have to refuse answering questions just for the student's sake, let's say, you know?
Yeah, I like to remind them, I'm like, it's progression. You have to build on previous skills, and if you jump straight into the deep end without learning, how to, what is that when you're swimming, when you're stationary? I'm asking non-native English speakers to help me with my language. Wait, like when you're waiting, if you don't know how to, like, if you don't know how to, like,
floating.
Yeah, if you don't know how to do that, if you're not comfortable like being in water and just floating, then how are you expecting to like do the backstroke across the deep end? Like, or like it's a progression. It's like any kind of skill. You have to like start slow and build on that skill. So yeah,
I very much I believe in that now, and I believed in that especially very much when I started teaching, and I've seen many students so far, and I start doubting myself on this slow progression, though that's how I teach. That's the only way I know how to teach. I can't teach unless I teach in certain logic and progression, building one thing upon the other. I've seen, though, I've seen several, it's less than half, but enough, students who learn by just like kind of by swimming. These students are difficult to teach. They want to learn by way similar to immersion. They, at a certain point, start resisting grammar, or rather, grammar like it causes more damage than what it helps. I'm telling you, this is kind of very hard for me to understand. That's not the type of learner I am. But I do have to adjust myself to those learners who want to study in a more chaotic way. For example, like in the middle of my course, a student goes to Israel, spends there for 3 weeks there. Of course, he comes back with questions about negative imperative or stuff like that. Because you've learned that phrase with this negative imperative because people use it all the time. You know, the most useful things are nearly always, not the easiest things in terms of grammar. Yes, people in everyday speech use very difficult constructions and difficult grammar. But when teaching like in artificial manner, I would definitely avoid it, and I have a very clear milestones in mind how to teach in which order. But when a student comes after a certain immersion situation, and I see it does them well. I mean, they are learning better by that. They are learning in a more natural. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's difficult for me even to understand what happens there in their heads, but it is.
It's like it's way better to have a total beginner than a student that is actually a beginner, but he just picked things up. So it's just like, well, I know this and I know that. Students. And so you're just opening your lessons. Oh, yes, I totally know that, but they don't know how to use it because they didn't really go in deep with that. So it's better to have a total beginner than somebody that knows something. I know that and I know this because it's just very easy to kind of, just organize your work and to teach them because they know some things but they don't know them well enough, and you have to explain them those things to them again. It's way better to have just a total beginner. You're going to follow my
I just had a great analogy pop into my head when you were explaining that. So it's like, because like I'm that student. I'm one of those horrible students, so I apologize. But no, because like think about it in terms of like I'm thinking right now, like in terms of building construction. So it's like, say you have like you want to build a wall, a brick wall or a stone wall or something like that. And you know that you need like these bricks in order to make it in this particular way. You need to build to be a strong wall. But you have a pile of current, like, it's not in any order. And so I need to go through and be like, okay, so this is the actual like starting point. So we'll start here. You have some of that. Cool. And then as we're building the wall, I'm going to fill in things that you don't have and bring from the pile that you have. It's an unorganized pile right now. I'm going to put it into a wall so that then we'll have the sturdy structure and you can understand. And so the parts aren't as important as the structure. So, like think about it that way. Like,
as a teacher,
I just came up with
we're
that,
like
so
moving. We're like teaching like this, like blindfolded, and we have to kind of by touching to guess what the student knows and what he doesn't know, and that's a very.
That's what. And I just say, hey, I'm just gonna show you all my presentations, and I'm just going to go over them with you. If you do know that and you're going to prove that to me, all right, we can go ahead. Yeah. Otherwise, you can use your knowledge and fill in the gaps, as you said.
Yeah.
But that's the only way.
Yeah. But for me as a teacher, I taught myself to overcome this certain irritation, about the student already knowing about something that I was just about to explain, because I'm not supposed, I shouldn't feel that way. I said, okay, calm down, be happy that this student already knows it. Yes. Oh, great. Oh, what? Oh, you know that already? I'm so happy. It is a skill to teach yourself. Yeah. Well, and it's,
all right, I have to jump off. So
yes, let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up in general. Last word to finish, and I think we can go home because it was long enough about being this point of being happy. When I look before this meetup, I was looking at my calendar. I was looking at the names of my students. I was looking for one who is a difficult student, and I couldn't find one. They're all challenging in their own ways, difficult in their own ways, but I can't label any single one as a troublesome or difficult or especially challenging, because they all at the end bring us satisfaction, tremendous satisfaction that they learn and we can teach them and they do achieve results. So I think that's a nice note yes, to wrap it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
All right.
Okay, great.
It was
And
nice meeting you all.
It was nice to meet you guys too.
yeah.
Okay.
See you
Bye
then.
bye. See you
Goodbye.
next time. Bye.
Bye. Goodbye.
Good day. Bye.
How do I turn it off? This way. Bye.